listen.
Never in my life associated the word boring with baseball.
We know what's up.
Me? Yeah. Famous? Yeah.
And I'm like giddy over there smiling like, we're about to win this shit.
Did everyone give you crap? Give me a good host story.
I'm not picking it up.
We both love the game.
We talk about it every day.
Can't get enough baseball.
Having some popcorn, you're fooling around your phone.
I'd have to wait in line for 3 hours.
Hang on, because it's about to be a wild ride.
Well, today is the launch of my first podcast, and the eye test, which is underneath the baseball umbrella of Baseball Isn't Boring. I have a special guest with me here today, probably one of my favorite people that I've come across within the game. I've known him since I've been 15 years old. Longtime scout, Mike Toomey. He's a special assistant to the GM for Kansas City Royals, with the Washington Nationals for a little while, coached at George Washington University, you name it. He's been around, and I think he's coaching at DeMatha now. So the high school, which is a premier sports school in DC or the Maryland area. My mom's from DC, but it's about 5 minutes from DC. So special guest of the show, and I'm so glad to have him, Mike Toomey. How are you doing?
Julian, I'm doing great. It's an honor to be on your show today.
Absolutely. And I want to first start, Coach, from when I remember I met you when I was 15 years old. And and this is part of why, I've sort of launched this entire platform is for voices like yours that I feel like in some parts of the game have gotten, the game has sort of steered away from. I remember being down at UVA camp. Me and my dad went down into Charlottesville, Virginia, and you were there. We were on the turf field in the back field, and I was so nervous, and I was making error after error in just warm-ups. And I remember the next day, we were hitting off a tee in the cages, and you came to me and you stopped me. You said, "Hey, I know you're upset about yesterday, but I want to let you know that you can play this game at the next level." I remember everything. I like your body. I like your swing. You have a quick bat. You recover from this. And you said, "Here's my information." And I took down your information, and I still remember your email, because I used to email you, what I did in my games and everything like that. And, that sort of catapulted me to, get a college scholarship to Ohio University. My parents were able to, pay for parts of my education. I played independent ball, and no, it didn't end up being play professional baseball in the terms of being with an affiliate, but that conversation alone helped get me to a point where I was being able to had an opportunity to play at some next level on this particular Division I level, and then the independent ball route. And then as I'm trying to get into journalism, just so how full circle this comes back in one winter meetings. I think it was either 2015 or 2016. And I ran into you. I hadn't seen you since that day, since I was a 10th grader. And you were
were in DC. We were in DC that day, weren't we, for the winter meetings?
Yep. And I ran into you, and you said, "Well, what are you trying to do?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm trying to get into journalism." And you were, and I remember the following year, I was up for a job at The Athletic, and they had me write these sample articles. And I said, "Hey, can I quote you in this article that I was writing on something?" And you were like, "Yeah, sure." And I was like, "Can I use it on the record?" You were like, "Yeah, sure, go ahead." And I used it, and it helped me get the job. So the full circle moment of that is just sort of why, baseball isn't boring, why the eye test is sort of important, not just necessarily just for the game itself, but just for the person. And so I just want to let you know that I appreciate you.
Well, I appreciate it. I think our job as scouts too is to encourage young men like yourself. You see something in a kid, you see the body language, like you were down that day, and I said, "Hey, I got to pick this kid up because he has some ability." And even if you didn't have ability, I think you got to put your arm around the guy and say, "Hey, hang here with it. Everything's going to be okay." And I think I know myself. I care about people. It's not about the game. It's about people. And in your case, I saw a lot of good things, and I just came over to encourage you a little bit.
I appreciate it. Well, so tell me about what's I know you had the the run as a longtime scout, what's life been like on the other side of all of this right now?
Well, I have a foundation for children in Colombia, South America, outside of Cartagena. The reason I picked Colombia, Julian, was because Venezuela and Dominican had a lot of resources with the players that they had at that time. You're talking about Orlando Cabrera and I'm trying to think of the player that played for Miami, Renteria. There was only a couple guys playing for Colombia at that time, so I felt that they needed a little support. We did some clinics down there. We gave them some equipment, and that's something that I really enjoy working with those kids. They're hungry. They want to play. You tell them to be on the field at 8, they're on the field at 7. So they're my kind of guys. I've been coaching a little bit in high school at DeMatha. Love that. Didn't do it this year because my mother had passed. And anybody that's had a couple houses, it's overwhelming. But I still keep busy. I work with Donnie Reynolds, the Donnie Reynolds Baseball Academy. And what we do, the group, is we try to encourage young men like yourself, have symposiums, tell them what to expect going to school, how to get noticed. I think there's a real need for that kind of work, and that's what we've been doing as well.
When you first look at a player, I mean, because now, I think we're stuck in an age where you have scouts that even say that they don't even need to go to games to be able to see players play, right? They have all this data and this information. They can watch them, play from their house or from their, from a computer. But from your perspective, what are what's the benefits of being at a game watching a player, and then what are the first things that you look for?
I think that the tool that's missing, or the tool that's most needed, is that 6 tool, and that's to get the player, the makeup, the body language. How do they, when they come off the bus, how do they interact with their teammates? Do they pick up the equipment? Are they team guys? If I see a kid foul off several balls, that tells me a lot about kids. He's a competitor. If I see a pitcher that throwing 86, 87 in high school in the old days, now he's got guys on second and third, the game's on the line. He goes back to 88, 89. So that tells you, a lot about a kid. How is he with the game on the line? How he treats his parents, respect he has for the umpires, runs balls out. If I see a kid not run a ball out, that's a red flag. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important that in the old days, I always put a lot of credence in that 6 tool, Julian. And I don't know that the guys that are doing the analytics see those kind of things. I wanted to get to know the kids. I would go in the house. I'd meet the parents. I wanted to find out the size of the parents. Do I think this kid's going to get a little bit bigger? I don't think that we do enough about what's going to happen in the future with this kid. But these are the things that we're missing. There's nothing like getting in the trenches, getting to know the kid, getting to know his makeup. These are the things that I think are missing nowadays.
When I was watching a clip from Coach Hurley from UConn, and he was talking about how he looks at the parents in the stands, right? And he sort of, when he's out scouting and seeing who could be a fit for UConn, and he says, are these parents yelling at the coaches? Are they yelling at the referees, right? Are they yelling in the stands, making a big fit? Because oftentimes there's a trickle down effect. If the parents acting like that, in some cases, it might be the kid could act like that too. Is that something that you look for too, is the familial dynamics?
Absolutely. If a parent is boisterous, arguing with the umpires, that's a real turnoff. You know why? Because they hurt the kid a lot of times, because now I got to live with the parents for 4 more years.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm not doing it. I think it's a shame. Some of these parents get on the internet now. They own the drill. They know more than you do. Most of them never had a jock on in their lives. I'm sorry to say it like that, but it is what it is. Social media. And you know what? That's another thing that I will tell kids. Stay off the social media. If there's something inappropriate, these coaches are looking at your social media, and they're finding out, if there's something involved in your makeup or what you're doing, boy, that's a big red flag too. Now, the other side of it is a guy might be a great kid. He might be a churchgoer. He might help people and elderly that need to be helped. But for the most part, there's a lot of negative things. And if I see something on there on the internet that's something that we're not really happy with, then we may give that kid the big X. So it's important for these kids to know that.
Yeah. What are the I guess the, like, because now it seems to be information overload, right? I know you're a big hitting guy, and now there seems to be this, like, you talk about social media. There's a lot of hitting gurus out there, a lot of different hitting coaches and stuff like that. Do you think that the game, you see all these different drills too, right? And it's like, it makes you feel like you've never played the game, or for me, I'm like, wow, I've never seen that drill, but it kind of looks like eyewash to a certain degree, right? Like, what's your take on all this information with, like, especially particularly with, like, hitting?
You know what, Julian? These kids are inundated with so much information. It's the old analysis paralysis.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? As a guy that teaches hitting and enjoys teaching hitting, it's a big job for me just to get them in an athletic position.
Mm-hmm.
A little hinge, 60-40, 50-50, get in that athletic position. And that takes no athletic ability at all. But forget about the other stuff. It's a chore just to get a kid in a good athletic position. Sometimes I'll use a basketball, guarding a guy. You see where you are right now? This is where you're supposed to be. Like I said, the hinge, maybe bending at the hips a little bit, engaging your lower half. Maybe a lot of these kids that I see, they grip the bat so tight, they look like they're going to get lead poisoning. Just to get them to relax their hands, get some rhythm. A lot of kids stand up there like a statue, and they're not ready. And we've got, as teachers, we're losing kids, Julian. We're losing kids to lacrosse and soccer because of poor practice organization and kids standing around. Kids want action. And I think other than the players, the coaches are the ones that need the clinics. I've always felt, Julian, that in order for a guy or a lady to coach a team or in an organization, that they had to go to at least 2 clinics, whether it be a college or a pro clinic, to learn the in and outs of how to teach these kids. Because you know what? There's a difference between a coach and a teacher.
Right. That's interesting. When you say a teacher, does the teacher come before the coach, or is it all bunched into one?
Well, the coach, sometimes you'll be at a practice, or I'll be in a restaurant and I'll see coach on the back, on the back of the shirt. And I'm thinking, wow, is this guy really a coach? But the teacher is the main thing. Techniques, learning from, I learned from a lot of old timers. My father was a football coach at Florida State and at Maryland. So I was very lucky to be around good people. When I was a kid, my dad dragged me along to football, basketball, baseball. Then he came to Maryland as the offensive coordinator. I was around good people. I was around good teachers. And I got to see a lot of great athletes throughout my years. And that really helped me, to get you guys say, well, when do you start scouting? I said, about 4 or 5. And they look at me, they said, what, are you crazy? I said, no, I said, I was around good people. So that helped me along the way.
You mentioned about, seeing, being a teacher since you're 5 and seeing some great players. Who in your career, when you, as a scout, assistant to the GM, whatever, that really, really stood out to you in terms of their play, their character, etc.?
Well, let me just give you a quick story. In 1980-81, I was managing in the Carolina League, and Darryl Strawberry was on the Lynchburg team. And man, what a good-looking kid! High-waisted, great gait. Struggled at the first half, but man, that second half he came on like gangbusters. Going to football, I saw the Ernie Davises. I saw Floyd Little. I saw Art Heyman, some of the guys people don't know, Barry Kramer at NYU. Oscar Robertson played a game they played a game at Cole Fieldhouse every year. So these were the kind of guys, that I got to see. I mean, big time guys that, that could really play. And most of them were football guys at that time. But, it just tells me. I saw Roger Staubach. And for those that don't know it, Roger Staubach played shortstop at the Naval Academy.
Really?
And of course, yes, he was a great athlete. I saw Deion Sanders at the Florida State. Two-way guys, Brian Jordan at high school. In fact, I remember Alex Cosmina says, "What are you doing here?" He thought he was the only guy that knew about Jordan. He went to Milford Mill High School in Baltimore. I said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "Hey, man, I'm doing my homework." And, that's the thing now. Guys don't get in the trenches anymore. I used to go down to Howard University in D.C. Not many scouts used to go. They were afraid to go down to D.C. or they were afraid to go in Paducah, Kentucky. I had Virginia, West Virginia, Maryland, D.C., Delaware, Pennsylvania, and Kentucky. Now, how are you going to cover that? I was worried about the guy in Kentucky and a pitcher in Erie, Pennsylvania. You can't get there from here. And I had an old station wagon, and I had one of those bars, and I loaded up for about 3 weeks at a time, man. And I was hustling just to find like a little diamond in the rough. So that's when scouting was scouting. I can tell you a lot of great stories, but that's what it's all about.
You mentioned Brian Jordan. I remember, my dad's from Baltimore, so he used to always kind of mention him when he saw him play, the tour and during his career. What were some of the things that sort of stuck out to you about Brian?
First of all, great body. I mean, this guy was, he was chiseled, and he was a little bit raw, but he could do everything. I mean, he had all the tools, and he didn't sign. Then I went down to Richmond to see him. He got better. And I think the reason that you didn't see the finished product is because he was playing football, and he did both at Richmond. So when it was time just to concentrate on baseball, sometimes it takes guys to get rid of those football muscles. And usually guys like that are a little better later in the spring when they get in baseball shape. But he could do everything. He led by example. He didn't say much, but he didn't have to say much. He just went out there and played. So it was a pleasure to watch him. It really was.
It's interesting. I was looking back at I went back to after Deion Sanders was obviously in the news a lot this year, but I went back and looked at his baseball stats, and I was like, whoa, like he was actually a really good player. It's amazing that he was able to do the things that he did.
He was a great player. In fact, I remember it was against South Florida, and he hit a home run to win the game. And then, if my memory serves me right, he took his uniform off and went over to the track and ran the 440 or whatever it was. So, wow. And then, you know what? He was, at that time, a lot of coaches wouldn't let, guys play baseball and football. And, when it was football spring, he would be out there doing some walkthrough stuff for football. That's a pretty good day.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many guys can say that they did that kind of thing. And I asked him, because my dad had coached there, Don Foss was a trainer, and I got to know him. And I said, Deion, what's your favorite sport? And he said, man, I love that football. He said, I like running those balls back, and hitting people and so on and so forth. But, there was no doubt. But, man, could he run? He was an electrifying athlete, and you don't see many like that throughout your whole scouting career.
When you look at, I guess, the player today, and a lot of these kids, I think a lot of times you run into the fact of, when I was growing up, you played every sport. When it was basketball season, I played basketball. When it was baseball season, I played baseball. When it was football season, I found out real quick I didn't like football, but I played it at least one season. But I was mainly basketball and baseball. Those were my two main sports. When you look at these kids now playing and they're 13 years old, playing upwards of 65, 70 games a summer, plus fall ball, plus, going to these places where they're, throwing their arms out in December, and they're having them throw as hard as you can. Are we getting lost here? Is it too much baseball at all times?
I absolutely agree with 100%. I love the guys that play all three sports. I think our kids get stale. There's no doubt about it. They go to these showcases. And you know what? Why not stay home? Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, I can get 10 at bats, 8 at bats. Okay, let's go to Myrtle Beach.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm in Myrtle Beach. So what? Why don't I stay home and play? You go down to a tournament like that, you may get 3 at bats. You may play 3 games on a Saturday. You've been in the losers bracket. Kids get worn out. That's a good time to get hurt. Now they go to the fall ball. I'll tell you a great story. Jack Cust was a left-handed hitter, played with Arizona. Man, he could hit the ball a long way. And I remember he played basketball. And Julian, what I used to do is I would go watch guys play the other sports. I wanted to find out who was going to put their head in there on a loose ball or when a guy shy away. It told me something about his makeup. And I went to watch Cust's basketball game just to find out, you know, what kind of blue collar guy this was. And he's diving, telling me a lot about him. And then after the game, you know what he said to me? He said, "Hey, Toombs, you want to come over and watch me take some BP in the cage?" I mean, these guys, you know, they separate themselves from the other guys. He's hungry. He wants to play. And these were the kind of kids. This is that sixth tool that you're looking for, Julian. These kind of kids that separate themselves from the other guys. And I think if you play 2 or 3 sports, I think it gives you different things. You're around different people. You're around different coaches. I know playing Legion ball after high school, it was fun to play with other guys. You know, different faces, interact with different people. You know, there was a lot to be said for that.
You were part of the 2015, you know, World Series team with the was that was 2015, correct? Am I right?
Yes, it was. Yep.
Yeah. What are you know, just to sort of transition to sort of your big league side? I know you have a lot on the amateur side, but you have a lot on the professional side as well. What were some of the things that stood out to you about that team, about you know, the players? You know, I covered Eric Hosmer for a little bit. People talked about how he was such a great clubhouse guy. You saw it in our interactions with Eric. He was a great clubhouse guy. You know, obviously you had Lorenzo Cain. It was a really deep team, deep bullpen. You know, pitching staff. What are some of the things that stood out to you that team, and why do you think it worked so well?
You know, the guys in that club got along good. We had Perez as the catcher, who's still playing. And you talk about a guy that led by example. In fact, I had him. Dayton was good enough to let me go down to the over to Latin America and work with some of the hitters in the cage over there at the academy. And you know what? I saved the tape of him, and his swing looks almost exactly when he was 16 or 17 as it is right now.
Really?
But we had good camaraderie. You know, a guy that I thought really played a big role for us was a Ben Zobrist. He played a lot of different positions, Julian. If you can find guys that he played a little short, a little second, a little third, a little outfield. And that's what I tell these kids. They all want to play shortstop. But I said, you know what? If I see a kid of equal ability, if you can play second, I think it's important for those kids to get on the other side and learn the nuances of the footwork, the angles. If I saw 2 guys and they had the same ability, I'm going to take the guy that can play both shortstop and second base. I think we need to encourage these kids not to get locked into one position, play other positions. And one thing that I wanted to say to the kids, I used to cross-check. And if I went to a ball game to see an infielder play and he didn't get a ground ball the whole game, all right, how do I measure that kid? Infield, outfield is crucial. Because I can see hands, I can see feet, I can see first step quickness, I can see agility, and you know, a kid doesn't maybe not get a ball, but I'll tell you what, I can see the hands, I can see the feet. So to tell the kids out there, hey, you take a good infield. If you have a good arm, show it. If you have a good hand, show it. So same thing hitting. I used to carry wood bats in my trunk with about 6 dozen balls. Maybe a kid would walk twice, get hit by a pitch. Hell, I didn't see, you know, maybe one swing. So I would ask the coach or the parents, hey, can I throw this guy some batting practice with the wood? And for a lot of guys, it was like hitting with a Washington Post. they couldn't get the ball out of the infield. So that separated the wheat from the chaff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hear you. When you mentioned Dayton, and for those who don't know, Dayton Moore, the longtime GM for the Kansas City Royals. Obviously, he built up something great there while he was there. You were his mentor, and he speaks very, very highly of you whenever I see him. Just tell us a little bit about your relationship with him, how you guys came to meet, and sort of you guys' relationship. Yeah.
I first met Dayton. He was a player at George Mason University over in Virginia. And he was one of those blue collar guys that made all the plays. He was a baseball player. We don't have enough of baseball players now. Guys that can bunt, guys that can hit the ball, a man on second, get the guy over to third base. I think we're in an area of entitlement. But Dayton, when he first started scouting, then he went and coached at George Mason. He says, Toombs, I don't know about Pennsylvania. I got Pennsylvania, man. Can you help me? Well, I had him shadow me in a fall one year and took him to places way back in the woods and had him meet a lot of coaches. Julian, it takes about 3 years as an amateur scout just to learn your territory. Who are the coaches? Where are the places I have to go? And of course, Dayton's a great evaluator. He's a great player development guy. And he was a good player. And he can do just about everything in this game. General manager. And he treated everybody with respect. He was the kind of guy that you could go right up to and ask him a question. And, there's not many guys like that left anymore. And it was a pleasure to work for him. He's quite a guy.
Last couple of questions. I know you got to run here. I know we said we'd go till 3:30, but so you mentioned, I know last couple of questions, because I know we were talking about like evaluating, even when you're seeing a guy that's coming in as a scout, we're talking about player evaluation, but what tells you, say like Dayton was going to be a good scout, a good GM?
Well, passion is the first thing. And like as you were a player, you do the same thing as a scout. You hustle. You try to outwork the other guy. That's the characteristic that a scout has. I've seen a lot of guys ride in the same car with other scouts. You like them? I don't know. Do you like them? I like them. Do you like them? I never rode in a car with another scout. I didn't want people to let me know. People would call me, where is he? What you doing? I never, would ride with another guy. I was out there on my own, man. I didn't want people, let people know, where I was, because I was getting after it. I was really getting after it. And, one quick story about the old scouts. I remember when the radar gun came out. We didn't have one. Some of the old timers like Joe Consoli, Joe Branzell did. And I'll tell you how competitive it was. Joe calibrated his gun. So if it was 88, 89, it was maybe 83 on his gun. And I say, hell, Joe, he's throwing hard in that. He said, no, here it is right here on the gun. But 83, but those guys, and another guy would say, he'd whisper thinking you were a new guy. Did you see that guy down there in Logan, West Virginia? He's a hell of a player. And so I'd be hearing, and I'd maybe drive all the way to Logan. There was nobody at Logan. They wanted to get you, 3 or 4, days off of them, so you couldn't go to the place where you're supposed to be, and that's how it is.
So wait, because this is the first time I'm hearing this. So with scouting, there's the game within the game, and within scouting as well, in terms of like just trying to get over on people, all that stuff.
Oh, absolutely. I remember Dick Bowie had Jesse Jefferson living in his basement. He didn't want anybody to see Jesse Jefferson. And for those that you don't know, Jesse was a black pitcher that played for the Orioles. That's how cutthroat was. I mean, hey, this is competition, man. And, you better get after it, because, if you didn't, you were left. We called them ha-hoo scouts. Ha-hoo. They go, ha? Who? and that's the way it was. And man, it was fun, to have all those places. I was blessed to go to a lot of places. And then, Virginia, or the Venezuela, Dominican, Panama, Colombia, Japan, Korea. I was really blessed to do something that I loved, and I'm thankful to all the guys that gave me those opportunities.
Could you tell me lastly, could you tell me a quick story about, because you always talk about the guy that you have to push for your team to draft and say like, no, we need to take this guy. What was one of those guys in your career that you had? I'm sure you've had plenty of them that stood out to you and it turned out to be the right decision.
I'll tell you, that's a great question. I worked for Sandy Johnson, who was one of the great baseball guys. He was the scouting director and player development guy. Now they have 15 guys to fill that position. And I was in the draft with Sandy, and we didn't have computers. We had papers all over the place. We had A, B, C. And he said, who's your gut feel guy? Who's your gut feel guy? And I said, Mike Venafro. And you hear Mike's in that, Mike was in that movie. It was a movie they were talking about when they first came out, with the GM. I can't think. Brad Pitt was
Moneyball.
Moneyball. You heard his name a lot. I come home from a game from Richmond and I see the lights still on over at Maryland. I said, I'm going to go over there. And he was pitching to James Madison. Little sinker guy, little breaking ball was sinking. I said, you know what? This little guy's pretty good. So Sandy said, we get down late in the draft. And I said, let's take Venafro. I really like this kid. And, I got one right. And I'll never forget. I said, Mike, I'm going to meet you at the Pancakes House over there in Virginia. He goes, wait a minute. I said, no. I said, we signed him on the hood of a car for a minimal amount of money, and the rest is history. Mike had a pretty good career, with Texas and with a lot of clubs. He was a left-on left guy pretty much, but that's my gut feel diamond in the rough guy.
Well, I guess we'll end it right there, Coach. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you got to get to church, and so I definitely appreciate you taking the time and being as responsive as you've been to me throughout the years and all the help that you've given me. So I'm not here without you. So I appreciate it, and that's why I sort of wanted to make you the first guest on the eye test, because there's nobody better than Toombs.
God bless you, brother, and I'm proud of you. All of you have accomplished, and wish you continued luck and success. Thank you for having me on. It's a real honor to be with you, Julian. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Coach.